Welcome to the Brian Fultis Behavioral Finance Podcast, where we unravel the mysteries of behavioral finance and unlock the secrets to making smarter, more informed decisions with your money. Now, here's your host, Dr. Brian Fultis.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm super excited to continue to have this conversation about a mental shortcut or a heuristic that we're actually good at called the diversification heuristic. And so last week, we've learned that we're naturally quite good at diversifying. And this comes from a long history of wanting different sources of food and different ways we hunt, and brings us into how we naturally diversify our own food today and our music and our friends. And we also learned that it can also get in our way and help us make some bad decisions where sometimes we think that we're diversified, even though we're just overlapping our similar investments. But nevertheless, we're going to continue to take away the fact that we're actually pretty naturally good at that. And if we can be aware of when it is harming us, well, then we can kind of pivot out of those bad decisions and lead us into some better ones. But here's a question that I've been wrestling with, and this is our sequel to last week's episode, is there a point where it makes sense not to diversify? And I've been wrestling back and forth with this question as I continue to do my own research, and I also am looking at profiles of other people who have been successful financially. One of my favorite podcasts that I like to listen to, and I'm so sad that they have stopped recording, is this podcast called Millionaires Unveiled. And basically it follows the same process of talking to people who are net worth millionaires, and that ranges anywhere from just under $1 million to hundreds of millions of dollars, and getting them to tell their story and what they came from, how they built up, and what they're currently doing with this net worth of over $1 million. And a lot of the times when I would listen to these stories, I noticed a trend of a lot of people, they had their thing. It would always be their thing. And a lot of the times it was real estate, and they had their real estate thing and it was making them a lot of money. And when you think about this from a diversification standpoint, my tendency was to think, oh, wow, that's really good for them. I understand real estate as an asset class, all the benefits of that. But my God, where's the diversification in this? Is there any hedging? Because if this guy is building his real estate business and he's putting 10% down on these houses, does he not realize that if the real estate market were to pull back 10%, he's out 100% based on the leverage that he has in his company? And so it seems like sometimes this blind awareness of people's own portfolio. And so I had that. But then on the other hand, you go, okay, wait a minute. Somebody is specialized in real estate, let's say, or they have their own business. That makes sense for them to position their portfolios into what they're specialized in and what they are good at. So how do you disentangle this? That's was my conversation that I've been trying to untangle here for quite a while. And so I think I have a framework here that I want to share with you. And here are the two competing heuristics. Here are the two competing conflicts here. Diversification happens when we are uncertain about something. And when we are certain or have some special knowledge, then maybe we should be able to concentrate our portfolios. So if I'm going back to this potluck where there's all sorts of good food spread out, and I don't have a good understanding of what is actually good, I'm going to lean into that natural tendency to diversify and gain a little bit of knowledge over time. But by the time I get to that second or third plate, I'm starting to concentrate more into the things that taste better. Furthermore, let's assume that I have full knowledge of what's out there, and I know that there's a whole table of lobster and filet mignons in this really nice food. Does it make sense to say, yeah, but maybe I'm missing out? No, I'm going to just gobble that up before everybody else catches on. So again, it leads me to this conversation of, okay, when you are uncertain about something, it makes a lot of sense to diversify. When you are specialized, that is your green light to move into a more concentrated portfolio. Warren Buffett actually supports this, that he says diversification is a protection against ignorance. It makes little sense, though, if you know what you are doing. And so he understands that, yes, lack of diversification is riskier. But if you know what you are doing, then it doesn't make sense to go out and just diversify in the name of diversification. And so he does it. He's also said that, hey, for most investors, index funds are going to be the best way to go. That way you don't have to be that specialized investor. And that's what most people are, present company included. But he said, if you know what you're doing, then you can go and concentrate in this. And that's why Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, they talk about this circle of competence, these things that they are specialized in, what they know, in order to put a lot of those eggs in that basket where they have that circle of competence. And so in my mind, I'm going, okay, this is really good. I can make sense of that. Diversify when you're uncertain, and then when you're specialized in something, you can concentrate your portfolio in that area. But here's one big rub. How the hell do you know if you are actually specialized in something? And what kind of things can you do to test this? And that's where we're going to unpack the problem here. We are terrible judges of our own abilities and our own competencies. So before we start sorting this out, do we have an accurate gauge on our own competencies? And what we find here is, first, there's overconfidence, this inflated self of our own abilities. And this also leads us into what we know as this Dunning-Kruger effect. So I'm going to walk you through the 4 stages of the Dunning-Kruger effect, and then we'll tie this together into a better system on how we can actually accurately gauge our own competency and the competency of others. And so they have 4 stages, this widely known Dunning-Kruger effect, and how we know when we've earned the right towards competency. Once you pass these 4 steps. Step 1, this is called unconscious incompetency. And this is right when you just get started learning about a topic. Those of us who just got into finance, if you can remember this, first year of learning, there's so much to learn. But then you feel like, man, I know it all now. And wow, this is so good. And this is the first phase where your confidence is actually the highest. Because you don't even know what you don't know at that point. You are just excited, you're learning, you go, oh, I'm a master at this. Add in maybe a little bit of good experiences. So if you have your first trade that you make in stocks, you suddenly know everything about stocks and you can't miss. You know all the hot trends, and you've had 1 or 2 good trades, and your confidence is through the roof. It's what I see in a lot of early investors as well. And it tends to get amplified by a couple of lucky punches in the first couple of trades, and that really, really amplifies it. But what we know is at some point, very soon, usually sooner before later, you're going to enter into phase 2, which is conscious incompetence. So now you're starting to be aware of the things that you didn't know, and you're realizing, oh, wow, this is very humbling. I have a very long way to go. And so this second stage takes you from the highest confidence level, all 4 stages, down to the lowest confidence level of all 4 stages. And this is usually when you start eating humble pie. Sometimes if you are overly leveraged, you can lose your shirt in this area. But if you are able to dust yourself off, pick up the pieces of your confidence and still explore this topic, this is where a lot of people quit. But if you're willing to keep going, you can move into stage 3. And this is where you have conscious competence, where you start realizing, pulling these pieces together, you've seen some good, you've seen some bad in the topic, you've had some good trades, bad experiences, but now you're starting to gain a little bit more competency, and you're actually now conscious about it, where your skills are now increasing, their actual competency, but you're still on the humility train, still trying to work your way back up in that topic. And then stage 4 is when you have this unconscious competency, where you're competent, you know it, you still don't portray or still pretend that you know everything about this topic, but you have high confidence, and now it's grounded in actually being good at something. Yeah. So this is where you find the 4 stages. If you can get to that 4th stage, then you can maybe think about that concentration in portfolio in that particular area. And so how do we know what stage we're in? Because if you ask somebody in stage 1, what stage are you in? Then it's like, I know it all. I'm in stage 4. So this is where we say, okay, tactically, to get to stage 4, we need some things in place. First, do you have a feedback system where you can get feedback from others on your competency, how you're doing? And then also, do you have some sort of time? What sort of timetable do you have? Have you been doing this for 3 months? Or have you been doing this for 10 to 30 years? Like, that's a big, big difference on how you can gauge where you're at. And I mean, I can remember this, and I hope I'm at that stage 4 in my professional life, and hope you're enjoying learning about this as much as I enjoy teaching this. But at the same time, I realized that in these stages, from being that trader at Fidelity when I started in my 20s to really feeling like I knew it all, and then of course getting humbled and having to go through the financial crisis with a lot of my first investments, learning that the hard way, trying to pick up the pieces from there, and then moving into, getting a PhD in finance and doing all of the academic review, or the publications and all the research, and then bringing that to light into like practical applications for people. That process to now get to that point of going, and I really have a lot to share. I hope it helps people, and I hope it helps people who help people. That's where the real impact happens. But I also understand that I also used to think that having a doctorate meant that I had to know everything about everything within finance, and I would be an imposter if I didn't know that. And finally can get to that place of, look, I don't know everything. I'm still learning. And even in the area of behavioral finance, there's still many pockets of learning that I can improve on. And so I like that, but that sort of narrative tells me that, all right, I think you're on this right path of being able to specialize in this, right? So anyway, hopefully we can have a big enough business in this area where I say, yeah, I got to concentrate all my portfolio into this awesome business. And hopefully you can help me with that. If you liked what you heard today, would love to hear from you. First of all, ask any questions, any feedback. Would love to hear from you. Any topic ideas, also wide open to that. If you want to be a guest, would love to hear from you about that as well. You want me to be a guest? Bring it on. You want me to teach in your class somewhere? Bring it on. Regardless, would love to hear from you. So please reach out. I'll have some contact information in the show notes. And with that, we will leave it alone and move on to the next topic next week. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you later.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brian Fultis Behavioral Finance Podcast. We hope you found our exploration into the fascinating world of human behavior and finance both enlightening and thought-provoking. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes. And until next time, stay curious and financially savvy.